Hey friends, hi again, welcome back. I'm going to be talking about shadow work. Have you heard of this? My exercise today was going in and showing with a paper plate. I started with a paper plate. So I made the mask. So this side, the side that I'd be proud to share with people. So my traits, things that I do outwardly love about myself, which would have been hard to say not too long ago because I was not always so accepting of myself, believe it or not. But yeah, so this is the yay me side. And then my shadow side. And a lot of it is like childhood related too, where were you ever shamed for having your feelings, for being dramatic, for being selfish, for being emotional, for being sad? I have these here, my angry eyebrows. I had a lot of shame about getting angry. And right, the goal of these shadows is to integrate them, to welcome them, to know that there's a place. They're there for a reason. There's a place for them. So I hope through this art exercise, it's a good step towards accepting yourself more and saying, you know what, there's a place for anger. I think a big shadow of mine is timidness. So I had been taken advantage of a few too many times, and just being that people pleaser, easygoing person, yeah. I didn't want to rock the boat. It's a matter of safety too. So being that person that doesn't speak up and stays quiet and is agreeable, things like that, that came up for me, and there are definite reasons behind that, and to know that is just really helpful in itself, and just even knowing it and accepting the why behind it has helped me kind of be more assertive and more balanced, and not feel so much shame for just simply expressing my opinion or asking for what I need in my marriage, and things like that, it has, I think that's a real life example of integration, of like, okay, I know where this came from, and I'm gonna have compassion for myself, for her, for when I was in those situations where I wish I would have spoken up. I wasn't ready. It wasn't time for that. I forgive myself for that. Now, just having that perspective and having forgiven myself for those times that would have brought me, or did bring me shame for a long time, and now understanding why, it's just so much easier to be me, be every part of me that I am now, and I have so much less shame, and it's just so liberating. So I'm hoping to help everyone get there too, because it's just such a better place to be. And there's trauma there, those reasons for that are, you know. So in honor of trauma awareness this month, and that's what the magazine this month is dedicated to, and Authentic Insider is dedicated to, is trauma awareness. And so I thought shadow work would be such a good thing. Okay, this side are outer projections, things we want to put out in the world about ourselves. My empathic eyebrows, I'm the peacemaker. It's like, yeah, and I just said I don't like to be timid either. It's such a, you know, push-pull. But I want to be seen as happy, carefree, easygoing, stable, fun, those kind of things too. Colorful, creative. These circles for me represented being surrounded by people who support me. And then on this side, there's no circles. Like those are my knuckles holding over my face. So when I'm in this place of shame in the shadows, I feel like it's all just happening to me and nobody else can get it. So not true. We all struggle. And it's funny, I'm 36 and just kind of now really, like, I knew logically that yes, other people struggle. It's not just me. But just knowing that, it's so comforting. Like, we all have our things. I was diagnosed ADHD late in life. Not super late, but anyway, so just like coming to terms with that and accepting those kind of flaws and the things that I struggle with and need help on and all of that. It's okay. It's okay. So I hope this is helpful and fun. Let's do a little art together. Grab your paper plates. Hopefully you have one. You can use paper and let's do it. Yay. We'll evolve like butterflies together. I hope you enjoy the project. Yay, let's do it. Okay, so the inner shadow. What is the inner shadow? So I'll link the article I referenced for this. I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert. I just am on a journey and I'm sharing that with you. So yeah, just had to put that out there. So what is the inner shadow? Parts of yourself that you subconsciously reject. Anything that threatens the way you present yourself to the world, that is, brings your shadow self into the light, will be seen as a threat to your identity and ultimately your safety. So it's not always obvious to us what our shadows are. And luckily I went to therapy this week and I was able to reflect with my therapist about what my shadows are. And I've been working with her for a long time, so it was nice to have clarity on it. And shadow work, what is that? Shadow work is working with your unconscious mind to uncover the parts of yourself that you repress and hide from yourself. This can include trauma or parts of your personality that you subconsciously consider undesirable. So it can be a lot of things. It doesn't always come from trauma. But the goal of shadow work is integration, which just means accepting those parts of yourself so that you can be whole again. So once you start bringing in love and understanding for those parts of you that maybe you've rejected or kind of shut off, and if you can welcome those pieces of you back in and hold a loving place for them, you start to feel more whole. The first step was developing the awareness of these things, because you can't get anywhere without knowing what you're dealing with, and ultimately self-acceptance and compassion. So this can be usually a therapy journey, but also a spiritual journey. If it's trauma, you'll need a therapist to work through the trauma, or I'd highly recommend it. A therapist can spot patterns that you might miss, and that's one of the things that helps you find your shadow. So your patterns in life, your triggers, that can tell a lot about what your shadows are. Negative self-talk, so things you beat yourself up about, that would indicate probably a shadow. We yell at ourselves if we're not doing things like we think others should. And I've gone through this a lot with just like executive functioning things. I have ADHD, adult diagnosed, and so when I go off on a very long tangent of, say, pressure washing or just hosing off my patio instead of doing this, I could beat myself up, but you know, it's just part of my functioning. It's just part of, like, you know, following the dopamine a little bit there. So anyway, knowing that about myself now, after a long time, being diagnosed at what, in my 30s, it's just really helpful, and I've integrated that part of myself. Maybe there's more work to do, but a lot of it is integrated, where I accept my flaws in that department. Things like looking back on what your parents valued, and did you hold up to that? Like, did you meet your parents' values? And if not, was there shame there? So that can help you find your shadow too, like what the people around you valued when you were growing up, and if you fit into that picture or not. So that's a good indicator too. So how it affects you when you ignore your shadows or reject them, there's a negative impact on your well-being. This part of you craves to be understood and explored because it was ignored or shamed. It can lead to issues. Your shadow isn't a flaw or a mistake. Instead, it's a natural part of who you are. So there comes the compassion and the self-acceptance that is so powerful. I've been experiencing that through therapy, just like reflecting on things with my therapist this week, and she was like, I'm so proud of you, because I just would have thought of things so differently than I have been lately, like seeing all the sides instead of just self-blame, and yeah, just not, like, I always thought that everybody else had everything figured out and I was the only one who was a mess and crazy and not doing it right or whatever, and I'm putting that to rest finally. So that feels really good, and it's boosting my confidence. So, but starting shadow work, decide if you'll seek therapy or do it on your own. And I've already said, like, a trained professional can spot patterns that you might miss and give you tools to deal with triggers along the way. Also help you, you know, give you kind of personalized prompts. What came up in therapy for me, she just right off the bat said abandonment, rejection, and I said it feels like shame, like there are lots of things I was shaming myself for. And then imposter syndrome, that's always one I relate to. So, and it was nice because my therapist was like, well, wait, this is a really heady topic, so let's go back to basics. Like, what is a shadow? And I was like, you mean in like real life? And she said, yeah. And so we talked about how a shadow is like a figure of yourself that's undefined. It can be sometimes sharp, depending on the sun. Sometimes it's blurry. It can be large, small. It can blend with other shadows. It can blend with other people's shadows. It can be super long. It can be really short. So like the degree of the shadows varies. And I thought that was really a cool way to look at it when it comes to also the shadows in our mental health and our personalities and things that we value about ourselves and things that we might not. So I guess it's things we don't value about ourselves when it comes to shadows. I just hope you find a little room for compassion for your shadows. Thanks for joining me. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, especially if you try the exercise or if you got something out of just the discussion.